Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got another little knife versus video for you right here, right now. Feel free to subscribe to that little bell notification if you do not want to miss weekly knife and gun videos. Let's get right into this. This is going to be on the Cold Steel Range Boss going head to head against the Cold Steel N-Gage 3-inch in 4116 stainless. Both very different yet similar knives in their own respects. They're both extremely lightweight and they both have very strong locking mechanisms. Although they may look very different, we have some similarities going here. Let's just get the specs out of the way first. The Range Boss on top weighs 3.4 ounces according to Cold Steel's official website. Comes in the 4116 stainless steel, at least mine did anyway. I'm getting conflicting information. Some people say theirs came with the 4034 SS, which is, in my research, just a notch below the 4116 in quality, in edge retention, and corrosion and rust resistance. Very similar steel, but I'm just going to go with what I have right here. It has a 4116 stainless blade steel, stonewash finish, clip style, Xi-X handle, which also, from what I understand, is a reinforced GFN or FRN, whatever you want to call that. There's a little bit extra glass in there. Super strong hard plastic, and we have a skateboard tape like traction on both handle scales. I really like that. Tip up carry, that pocket clip, although is not swappable to the left side, it comes with a spare pocket clip that can be swapped to the left side. So that, with the fact that it's got dual thumb studs, albeit lopsided dual thumb studs, but they can be swapped around. It also has a triad lock, meaning this knife is 110% ambidextrous. Lefties rejoice. Very light, very long actually too. In fact, has a 4-inch blade, 5.25-inch handle, meaning the overall length is 9.25 inches. So pretty long knife actually. For this weight, you're getting a lot of strength right here. Retails at $51.99. In the aftermarket, most websites you can get these for around the mid $30 range. About $35 or so is what I'm currently seeing as of late 2023. Moving on to our Cold Steel N-Gage on this particular variant. This one happens to be the Tonto style, although it also comes in the clip point blade style, although it looks more like a drop point blade to me, whatever. Blade length is 3.125 inches. The handle length is 4.125 inches, meaning the overall length is 7.25 inches. Also, the 4116 steel black stonewash finish on here, which is really beautiful, I think. It has what they call the GFN handle scale. So they're saying this is the Xi-X, this is GFN. So if that information actually is correct, that means this handle scale is technically going to be stronger than the handle scales on this knife. Not a big deal. Weighs 2.3 ounces, according to the site I'm looking at right now. Also, tip up carry. That pocket clip is swappable to the left side. This exact one right here. Atlas lock instead of the triad lock, also extremely strong. We're going to talk about that. So right off the bat, our N-Gage is lighter and smaller, more smooth. Handle scales, much less traction, less grippy. This guy's going to be longer. We have a triad lock instead of the Atlas lock. It's a little bit heavier. You're certainly getting more blade, more cutting edge to work with, a lot more grippy. They're both very slim knives too. Very slim. Just for craps and giggles, let's weigh these two. My scale is saying 3.34 ounces for the Range Boss, and then the N-Gage 2.37. So basically our Range Boss is a good ounce heavier than the N-Gage. So very overall different configurations on both of these knives. This guy's more nimble, more small, more light, more compact. I'm going to say faster because that Atlas lock that Cold Steel just came out with recently is faster than the Triad lock. It's got the fidget factor. It's easy to open and close this knife entirely by just using the locking mechanism and entirely with one hand. But of course, you can also just flick out the knife like that. You can open it conventionally. Great locking mechanism. The triad lock, also a great locking mechanism. Certainly stronger, a little bit slower just because it's a lockback style folder. There's a lot of tension going on the blade there. But you can still open these Range Bosses up with one hand. It's not a big deal. It's still a very fast locking mechanism, but you generally have to close it with two hands because, again, it's a lockback style folder. You can rock it forward like that if you want, but I don't recommend that because if your fingers are accidentally too low, the cutting edge is going to get your fingers, an inherited problem all lockback style folders tend to have. This one, the fidget factor is not quite as there. Technically, it's not as fast. Technically, it's not as convenient because generally you should be closing it with two hands. But as far as strength is concerned, as far as I've seen, the triad lock, I think overall is stronger, I'm going to say, just because from the videos I've watched, the research I've done, it just handles shock a lot better than the Atlas lock. You can be batoning with these things, wailing on these locking mechanisms and have no problems. Atlas lock, there was a video I watched where it started developing play after batoning with it. It wasn't this knife specifically, it was the S35VN version, I believe, with the G10. So this is the cheaper, watered-down version with the flimsier handle materials in comparison. It started developing play after that. Not that I would baton with any folding knife, pretty much under any circumstances, but Cold Steel claims the Atlas lock holds more weight than the Triad lock does. I have a whole video discussing how the Atlas lock works, and then I have another video discussing the differences between it directly compared to the Triad lock. But basically we have a dual pin system right here, and this bar up here makes contact with both of them from the bottom, but one of them from the top right here. It's kind of a somewhat of a complicated mechanism. This locking mechanism can hold more weight, more poundage on it without it disengaging, but this locking mechanism can withstand more shock. They're both extremely, extremely strong locking mechanisms, some of the strongest in the world, but for the configuration we have going on both of these knives, honestly, they're perfectly placed. I think the Atlas lock works better on this guy right here just because it's a lighter, flimsier EDC style knife. So I'd take the locking mechanism that's just more convenient and fast and fun. For this guy, I'd be using it more for hard use, even though I don't consider it an extremely hard use knife just because it's so slim, it's so light, no steel liners in there. It's still really, really, really strong, but I think they picked the right locking mechanisms for both of these guys right here, so good job on that, Cold Steel. In short, this knife's a little bit faster, a little bit more convenient as far as its locking mechanism is concerned, and although it will hold more weight than the Triad lock will, it won't withstand hard use and shock as much as the Triad lock will. So overall, I'm still going to give strength a win on the Range Boss overall, but for general purpose, I think the Engage wins. Just because, again, not just the locking mechanism, but it's also lighter, it's a friendlier, smoother shape. Pocket clip, very, very simple, loop over. Even less is going to be poking out of your pocket in comparison to the Range Boss, as you can see right there. Something like that. That's how they're both going to ride in your pocket, because we have a loop over clip on the Engage. Obviously, less is going to be poking out. Overall, better design on the pocket clip. It's just more simple. It works well. And, you know, I don't mind the way it looks. It's fine. This guy is really, really tight out of the packaging. I actually loosened this up myself. You can see my skin poking through the very bottom of the pocket clip right there where it's supposed to pinch onto the handle scale. That's because I loosened it. I actually pried this upwards slightly. It was just really, really tight. It was way too tight. That in combination with the aggressive texturing on here, it was a nightmare getting it in and out of my pants. After loosening it, it's totally fine. But out of the package, I would be wary of that. Maybe you won't have that issue. I did. Maybe I just got a lemon. But in my experience, it was way too tight. I mean, too tight. Like, I didn't think anyone could be comfortable with that. But that was just me, and maybe that was just the one I got. But overall, better pocket clip. I'm just going to give another point to the Engage. They're both completely ambidextrous. We also have a lanyard hole on our Engage. We do not on our Range Boss. That's another point the Engage gets. It just has that option. Now, the prices. This is where things get funny. Our Range Boss retails at $51.99, while our Engage 3 inches and 41/16 retails at $79.99. In the aftermarket, you can get these Range Bosses for around the mid $30 range. Aftermarket, this particular version of the Engage goes for the mid 60s. So we're adding a good $30 onto this Engage, possibly more depending on where you look. For a knife that is smaller and objectively has less materials, despite those materials being the same, arguably worse if you count the GFN versus the Zyx, if you want to get really technical, that is a problem. They're both made in the same location, Taiwan. They both have 41/16 steel, but we literally are getting less of it on this Engage. Now, one big difference is the locking mechanism. Despite the shapes, despite the weights, the sizes, the biggest difference both these knives have, I say, are the locking mechanisms. Atlas lock, Triad lock. I understand the Atlas lock is a little bit more complicated than the Triad lock. It's certainly a lot more simple. Overall, it's just a little bit more complicated. There's more parts that need to cooperate in order for this to function properly. But it's not that much more complex. It shouldn't cost that much more. I don't think $35 more just because the locking mechanism is a little bit different. I don't buy it. I think it's just a supply and demand thing right now. This is pretty expensive for what you're getting, the Engage, I say. And I covered that in my review of it. If this were the same price as the Range Boss, let's say these were both the exact same price, aftermarket, you could get these both for $35. So $70 would get you both of these knives. I still think the better deal would be the Range Boss because, again, the same materials, we're literally just getting more of them. We have more of a better handle material, more of the same blade steel, and then with a locking mechanism that's pretty evenly matched with the Atlas lock, despite having slight pros and cons. But no, currently where we're at, for whatever reason, our engages are a lot more expensive than the range bosses. So as far as price is concerned, absolute win on the range boss. Much, much, much better. Better deal, cheaper. Objectively, you're just getting more for your money, I say. But if you just want something a little bit more convenient to carry, even lighter, whole ounce lighter, it's going to be more friendly to carry. It's not going to get stuck in your pants as much. The handle scales are not nearly as aggressive. So just for a friendly EDC knife that's super fast, super light, you can wear this on sweatpants really easily because it's so smooth and so light. You're not going to have to deal with your sweatpants getting bogged down or getting swayed around because of this knife being so heavy or anything like that. And to top it all off, the locking mechanism kicks ass. I love the Atlas lock, again, for being so convenient and having the whole, I like opening and closing my knife with one hand for fun dealio. It's extremely strong too. Very easy to deploy, very easy to close with one hand. Very safe, very fast, very strong. 10 out of 10. Love this locking mechanism so much. This knife is extremely lightweight, just barely above 2 ounces. So even for a 3.125-inch blade, that's still pretty kick-ass. That's totally, totally worth it if you're trying to watch your weight. On the weaker side, other than the locking mechanism, we just have GFN handle scales here, no steel liners. It's on the slim side. It feels kind of cheap and flimsy for 65 bucks. Honestly, I wish this was like 30. Hell, like upper 20s. This would be an absolute home run, but because it's so expensive for what you're getting, I'm having kind of a hard time recommending it for that price. Range Boss, more cutting edge, more handle length. It's certainly grippier. Triad lock's not nearly as fun or convenient as the Atlas lock, but it's still very, very strong. It's more simple. It will undergo more shock. No lanyard hole on the Range Boss. For defense, easily the Range Boss is the winner, just because this hardcore traction plan we got on here, and because we have the extra overall length. Easily, no competition, the Range Boss is going to be our clear winner, I say. But for everyday carry, easily, no questions asked, the N-Gage 3-inch 4116. Even lighter, even more smooth, even more friendly, even faster, more convenient. These are both very, very light, slim knives with a very budget-friendly blade steel that are both pretty much overbuilt with extremely strong locking mechanisms attached to them. Again, if you can't decide, this guy's better for EDC, this guy's better for defense, as well as bushcraft survival style work. The big wrench in the whole fight between these two knives, though, is simply the fact that this guy's a lot more expensive. Our N-Gage is almost twice the price currently compared to the Range Boss. So if money is also a factor, you just want to save as much money as possible, there's another reason to go with the Range Boss. I absolutely love both of these knives. They're so simple, they're so cool, they're so functional, they're so effective for their niche uses. I just wish our N-Gage was a good 30 bucks cheaper at least. I know, sorry Cold Steel, love you, like this knife and all, but it's damn expensive right now. That is a lot of money you're paying for a 4116 SS knife with nothing but a flimsy little GFN handle. There's not a whole lot else going on there. I still like the knife. I'm just saying objectively, just looking at the materials, you could do a lot better with your money. I would just honestly, if you're just trying to save as much as possible, just get the Range Boss. But other than that, if you want a really strong, featherweight, convenient, speedy little EDC knife with a super, super strong locking mechanism, hey, it might just be worth it for you. So that's what you get today, the N-Gage versus the Range Boss. Thank you so much for watching. Which one is your favorite? Any advantages, pros, or cons I missed? Please let me know in the comments down below. Mannix out.